Hi, I'm Miriam, and for my application 3 essay, I will be talking about chapter 11, which explores romantic relationships. I will be looking at Knapp's model for coming together in more detail, and I will do it by analyzing the development of a relationship between Bella Swan and Edward Cullen, which are two famous book characters from the Twilight Saga. First, I'll be talking about the relationship between Bella Swan and Edward Cullen, how it came to be. Second, we'll be looking at the relationship between Edward Cullen and Bella Swan and looking at the development of it through the 5 stages of coming together. Finally, we will see where the relationship is by the end of the book series and if that relationship did meet all 5 stages of coming together. So like I mentioned, we will talk about what that relationship is. Edward Cullen and Bella Swan are two famous characters from the Twilight Saga. There are 4 books in the series, and all 4 books detail their love story. Edward Cullen is a vampire who lives with his voluntary kin family. In this voluntary kin family is a substitute family. As a vampire, you really don't have any living relatives. They all obviously are dead. And so he has made a family with the Cullens, and they all have their own unique story, and together they become a family by choice, and they really live by that word family. Bella Swan has divorced parents. Her mom lives in Arizona where she grew up with, but she finally decides after her mother remarries that she wants to live with her father and get to know him better, who lives in Forks, Washington. In Forks, Washington is where Edward Cullen and Bella Swan meet, and this is how their relationship starts. The term substitute family is explored in McCormack 2016, page 330, just in case I forgot to mention that. So let's get started. So now we know a little bit about them. Stage 1 in the coming together model is called initiating. Initiating is the sizing up the person. You're basically like just feeling them out, looking at them, gauging what they are like. You're looking at physical attractiveness. You're looking at like all these various things just about them. So it's very surface level. There's no real communication or anything like that. This happens for Bella and Edward Cullen in the lunchroom at the high school. Bella is being shown around by another student. She sees the Cullen family. Edward in particular looks very uncomfortable and weird, and he just does not like her. She feels he doesn't like her. Then later on that day, they have a biology class together, and they're forced to be lab partners. They were forced to sit next to each other, and this makes her even more uncomfortable because he's very stiff and he looks just very uncomfortable. And when the bell rings, he snaps up and he leaves. So this kind of tells her, oh, this guy doesn't like me. And so that's how they meet. That was their initiating. It was very uncomfortable. Initiating is talked about in McCormack, 2016, page 299. The second stage is experimenting, and this is discussed in McCormack 2016, page 299. And in this experimenting stage is the small talk stage. You're basically getting to know each other on again, kind of surface level, because you're only asking basic information like their age, what kind of classes they like, what job they have, what they like to do, hobbies, basic things like that, just to get to know the person. For Bella and Edward Cullen, this happens in the very first book, The Twilight. It's called Twilight. And basically, it starts because, again, like I mentioned, they're lab partners, and lab partners are forced to talk. So Edward kind of warms up a little bit, and they start talking to each other. They start sharing information, but very basic things. She just tells him, like, I'm from Arizona. I don't like the rain very much. And they kind of go back and forth like that. This experimenting stage continues on when Edward starts to drive her to school and back home. This happens after a horrific incident on Port Angels that kind of brings them together. They become more friendly, and they start sharing things. Yay, experimenting continues. Stage 3 is intensifying, and this is discussed in McCormack 2016, page 300. Intensifying, you're getting a little bit deeper. You're sharing personal information about your past, maybe secrets that you have, maybe your goals, things that are just deep to you that you don't tell just about anybody. And the point of this is to develop intimacy, because the more you share, the more intimate you become. For Bella and Edward Cullen, this happens in the very first book, Twilight, and Bella, and it only happens when Bella figures out he's a vampire. So before she knows he's a vampire, he keeps experimenting, He doesn't want it to intensify. But once Bella's like, I know you're a vampire, he's forced to give her the lowdown. He tells her everything. He takes her to his favorite spot, shows her that he sparkles. We learn in Twilight that vampires sparkle. And then he introduces her to his substitute family, and she gets to know them, gets to know more about their family history, and vice versa. She introduces him to her dad, and he gets to know her family that way. So they kind of start sharing things like that. And he starts saying, you are my life now. So the I love you and I'm in love with you is starting. Stage 4 is integrating, and this happens in the third book. In the second book, it actually details their coming apart, and it has three of those coming apart stages, and we won't talk about that. So let's go back to integrating. So we jump to the third book, Eclipse, and in Eclipse they have every single class together. They have they're always together. They are just, everyone who knows them, friends, family, coworkers, knows that they are a package deal. In integrating, which is covered in McCormack 2016, page 300, your personalities become one, and you guys share belongings. Everybody around you knows that you're a couple, and it's from me to us. So this is when you guys are like one, okay? And this happens for Bella and Edward in the third book. The final stage is called, fifth and final stage is called bonding, which is basically marriage. And this happens for Bella and Edward Swan in the fourth book. And marriage is important because that's the ultimate coming together. You know, first you decide to be together, but now it's by law. And this happens for Edward and Bella in the fourth and final book series. And Bella actually becomes a vampire in that book, so it's a whole nother level of bonding. Like this relationship, as you probably saw, it has every single stage of coming together, and by the end of the book series, they are together, they're still married, they're happily ever after.